He-Man is leaving some tiny tracks. Here's your look at the Mattel Master Universe Origins, Eternia Minis, He-Man, and Ground Ripper. It's time to experience the thrilling action and adventures of He-Man, Skeletor, The Secrets of Castle Grayskull, and much more. Eternian Minis feature classic vehicles and characters that fans know from the earliest days of Master Universe. Characters have movable joints for action posing, and vehicles spin or roll for dynamic play. Before we get this review started, for Eternian Mini He-Man and Ground Ripper, the first thing we want to do is figure out just how mini this master actually is by taking the tape measure right to the very top of He-Man and stopping it right there. These are pretty small, but just how small? 2.3 inches small. Let's switch that over to centimeters, revealing that Eternian Mini He-Man stands 5 centimeters tall. And that's pretty small. Just to show you some size comparisons, let's move over the Ground Ripper and bring in the previously looked at Skeletor. J'adore Skeletor. You can see just how tall they are from one another. Skeletor might be just a little bit taller, just more so based on the hood of his cloak. But yeah, these are great looking figures. Skeletor sadly didn't come with any included accessories, short of maybe the cannons that you could pluck off of the Roton and put into his hands instead. But He-Man does. He-Man comes included. Let's just move Skeletor out of the way for the time being. I'll bring him back in a second. He-Man comes included, of course, with his power sword. Of course, he's got to come included with his power sword. It's all molded here in gray plastic. It doesn't seem like there's any additional silver paint that's been added to it. It's just, like I said, the molded gray plastic. It does fit into his hand. Rather, actually, it fits into either one of his hands. And simply all you just do is take the power sword, slide it into his fist. That's it. That's all you have to do. Sorry, what? Put it in the other hand? Okay, you can do that. Put it into this hand, and you can see it also fits that as well. I would love if this guy could have also come included with his battle axe, but you know what? He comes with a sword. That should really be enough for me, and it really is. The power sword actually doesn't have any other place to fit or store on the figure. I suppose it would be asking a lot to actually have a little section on the back. I mean, it looks like there could have been an available means. I get the idea that they want to keep this as close together as possible so they really don't have to worry about problems with a little gap in between. But literally, they could have just put a whole slot right there so you could actually fit the power sword on his back. Small little complaint. Getting a closer look at He-Man, he is a nice little Eternia Mini. Like I had stated before when we looked at the Skeletor and Roton, sadly, I never had picked up any of the Eternia Minis till recently. Now, these figures are now starting to circulate avec vehicles, or dans les vehicles, if that is au proper français. So it's nice to actually see and finally get myself a He-Man that comes included with the Ground Ripper, which we'll talk about a little bit in a second. Just to quickly bring in Skeletor again, so you guys can see the difference between the two. It looks as if they're probably using very similar molds. The biceps and shoulders seem the same, and then, of course, they've just remolded, retooled the forearm part of it. But yeah, they probably are reusing a lot of the same similar molds, just so they can get as much mileage as they can, even though, yeah, loincloth is going to be different. Again, they probably just tooled a little bit of different tooling from one mold to the other. Love that Skeletor. And I realized I said J'adore Skeletor. It rhymed. The only thing I would say as a nitpick to He-Man, sadly, is when you look at his face. He does have the nice paint on his face, but he might have just a little bit too much of it. When you see his teeth, for example, they have missed their mark ever so slightly. It looks like He-Man was brushing his teeth and failed to notice that he had toothpaste still on his lips when he went to work. Nobody had the heart to really point that out to He-Man. They just sort of giggled in the background here. What are you guys laughing at? Oh, nothing. He's totally got toothpaste on his lip. That kind of looks like what it is here on He-Man. I do appreciate the fact that they did actually put a dividing line in between the top and the bottom of his teeth. But yeah, it's unfortunately he's got a little bit of white there on his lips. The head sculpt is pretty good though. I will say, like, it seems like his body isn't the same. Like, this part right here doesn't seem like it's the same coloring as the rest of his arms. Minor nitpick, yes, I know. Probably this is the case where this was painted, this is the molded plastic, but there is a little bit of separation from one color to the other. Nice looking He-Man, though. They have yet to release, as far as I know, a Battle Cat, and I wonder if Battle Cat would be a difficult thing to include with the figure, because if you think about it, He-Man's going to sit on top of it, and I don't think there's really a lot of mileage to work with. unless they make the back of Battle Cat's back literally like a triangle, and then He-Man just sort of perches on top. One thing that's rather interesting that I'll talk more about when we look at the Ground Ripper is it seems like a lot of the characters and the vehicles are making appearances quicker on the Eternian minis than they are in the actual Origins line. Clawful, for example, has already been released as an Eternian mini, and yet he's not released yet as an Origins. Can also be said, really, for the vehicles, too. Roton and the soon-to-look-at Ground Ripper, neither of them had made Origins appearances yet. So, it's kind of interesting. Just find that a bit funny. For the articulation on He-Man, it's the same as Skeletor. His head rotates all the way around. That would normally kill a human being, but he's, after all, the most powerful man in the universe. His arms rotate all the way around. They don't hinge in and out, but you can also rotate the lower torso. He does have peg holes in the undersides of his feet. None of these figures actually do come included with display stands, but they do come included with the next best thing. They come included with vehicles. Let's have a look, though, at the Ground Ripper. Good segue on over. The Ground Ripper, again, yet to make an appearance in the Origins line. To compare it with the previously looked at Roton, let's bring it in. There's definitely some sizing difference. The Ground Ripper is longer, but the Roton has a little bit more girth going for it. I do like the bright colors that both these vehicles present, and sticker application is top-notch. Though I can't take any credit for the sticker application, I did nothing of the sort. They were already there. Unlike the Roton, which I felt missed an opportunity to actually have a sticker on the control console, the Ground Ripper actually does have that. Kind of looks like a robot with his mouth shifted off to the side, or two robot faces side to side. What do you always have to compare things to robot faces? I'm sorry, it's something I do. Stickers are pretty good. Some of them are a little misaligned. But again, I can't take credit for that. Nor can I take blame for it. They were already in place. One pair of large tires on the back that spin quite freely. And one smaller tire just dead center in the middle. And then you've got that eagle head there in the front. Very, very cool. It does roll quite easily. No issues there whatsoever. Just love these treads, though. I think those are super cool looking treads. But similar to Roton, there is a peg right here that you can then take He-Man, take one of the supplied peg holes, although it makes strange sense to have him facing the wrong way. He's not going to be able to see where he's going. But basically, you're just going to take the one foot, sit it on top of that peg, and push down. A little bit of pressure. And you got He-Man right there. It doesn't actually look like he's controlling anything. In fact, it looks like the Ground Ripper is just automatically moving, and then He-Man's just sort of cheering to the crowd. Hey, look at me, I'm moving around. It's basically all the Ground Ripper doing all the work. I guess technically you could bring his arms down, but there really isn't anything that he's going to be lining up. And no way with those giant gorilla arms is He-Man going to be able to touch that middle console. Like I said, Ground Ripper is having to do all the work. He-Man's taking all the credit. But it's a nice little vehicle. Really like the look of this, and I like the fact that we're finally getting vehicles like this, though not yet in the Origins line. Seems to be like the Eternia minis are sort of testing the waters early, and of course they can do it with a smaller scale because these are smaller vehicles. It's a lot less plastic, and it's a lot less costs involved on Mattel's part to release a full-scale Ground Ripper. But let's hope that this is just an early tease at getting finally a Ground Ripper for the larger scale Master Universe Origins. I do like the look of this one. He-Man's a little messy when it comes to the face, especially the teeth area. So totally looks like he's got toothpaste all over his lips. Nobody's telling him. That's really mean. But I guess I don't know if I would be telling somebody either. I mean, he's the most powerful man in the universe. Do you really want to tell him that he's got toothpaste all over his lips here? To confuse the matter even further, I've decided to put the power sword here in Final Looks into one of He-Man's hands. Further indicating the fact that He-Man is not even piloting this thing. He just literally presses start. The Ground Ripper moves forward in a forwarding direction, and then hopefully there's no obstacles, rocks, other masters, characters standing in front of him, or a real dangerous cliff. Sort of like what it looks like on the front of the packaging here. Despite his inability to actually pilot this thing, the fact that we actually do get ourselves a Ground Ripper predating a release in the Origins line is still impressive. In fact, if you do a search on the Master Universe Eternia minis, you'll see a lot of characters and vehicles making appearances first in this line before eventually moving over to the Origins line. I think we actually did get ourselves a Ninjor part of this line first before it made its appearances over to the Origins line. And the same currently could be said for Clawful. It's the only Clawful we have so far from the newest Masters figures line, and it's part of the minis, not part of the Origins. I get that there's more involved construction for the larger Origins figures, So again, with this, it's a lot easier for Mattel just to mold these smaller masters, because again, there's a lot less construction involved in them. They have posable heads, posable arms, and the opposable waist, but that's it. So it's a lot easier to come up with a Clawful for a smaller scale than it is to create a Clawful. I'm just using that example because Clawful is a standout character, part of the Minis line, not so much yet released for the Origins line. I hope, though, that this is all teasing us, testing the waters to see if we're interested in this line, before eventually they release all the characters that we're looking at in the Eternia Minis as part of the Origins line. Because again, I would love to get a Roton and a Ground Ripper, which hopefully He-Man in that larger scale can actually pilot it. FYI, though, He-Man and Skeletor, the Skeletor that I loved so much in the earlier review, both of them are seeming to be using the same molds for their power battle armor counterparts. Same head, I think same arms, same lower torso, or same lower waist torso. The only thing that's different is, of course, He-Man's torso, Skeletor's torso, but I think all the rest of it stays the same. Just, again, it's a lot easier to produce a figure that way. We are going to be having a look, though, as I've sort of alluded that we are going to be looking at the Battle Armor He-Man, Battle Armor Skeletor as part of the Eternia Minis. Keep your peepers peeled for that, because those reviews will be coming up shortly. I do like the look of He-Man. I like Skeletor, though, just a little bit more. I don't think I'm just saying that because He-Man's kind of got a messy mouth, but there is a whole lot of white. It looks like it's toothpaste, and nobody's really going to dare tell He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe, that he has toothpaste all over his lips. I would totally tell him, but I would do it in a voice that sounded like Orko, sort of say it behind a bush or something. Orko, is that you? And then I would run. I wasn't even there. Definitely going to be a lot more Eternia Mini, though, review coming your way, coming soon to this channel, so make sure you're keeping your Masters peepers peeled at all times. Make sure as well you're hitting that subscribe button down below, turning the bell notification on, and yeah, come back to this channel, because there's always new content popping up and coming your way. And as always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.